if I came round your house tonight with a baseball bat, and let's just say, hypothetically, you wasn't there, but your children were, and with this baseball bat, I beat your children to death, and you came home, and your children are there on the floor, and they are lifeless. They are completely, dead. Blood all over the place, everything. And you know it was me. You find out that it was me. I've come round, Aaron, with a baseball bat and smash this baseball bat over your children's head. Right? And you find out it's me. You know where I live. Now, how do you feel? How would you feel if that was a real scenario? Would you be angry? Would you be extremely angry? Or would you be bothered? Would you want revenge? Would you want, to come round to where I live straight away and take revenge? Wouldn't you want to smash a baseball bat over my head? Wouldn't you want to do to me what I've done to your kids? Exactly the same, worse. Wouldn't you want to do that straight away, finding out, getting that information that it was me that had done that, and you wasn't provoked? Your children had not done anything wrong, had they? You'd not done anything wrong. I just took it upon myself to come round there and to smash a baseball bat over your kids' heads and kill them. They wasn't provoked. I just did it off my own back because I wanted to. I felt like it. I wanted to just do that. Wouldn't you want revenge? Wouldn't you want to get a baseball bat and smash it over my head? Wouldn't you want to come round to where I lived at that very second, find out my name? And wouldn't you want to kick my door in and do the same to me? And would it be right then, if you came round to my house and smashed my door in, would it then be right to, let's say, call you a terrorist? Would it be your fault that I've killed your children, smashed a baseball bat over their heads? Would that be then your fault, not my fault? Not to do with me? Would it be right then I called you a terrorist? Would you be a criminal for wanting to do what I've done to your children? Would you want, would you be a criminal? Would you be a terrorist for what I've done? Unprovoked. And what I'm referring to is the wars in the Middle East and this terrorism, which is a myth. It's a Western made up myth. It didn't exist until Western countries started meddling in Middle Eastern affairs. It wasn't like it is. Yet the West invades Middle Eastern countries unprovoked for economic stability, political power, political gain, political agendas. I mean, 9/11. 9/11 was planned well before the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. These were a series of planned events. Planned. 9/11 was an inside job. American government, of course it was. Without a shadow of a doubt, the American government did that to wage war in the Middle East. And it's not a conspiracy. I mean, conspiracy theory was made up by the CIA, wasn't it? It was a phrase coined by the CIA. And basically what it is when the government do something, they're in charge of the investigation. So they're in charge of the outcome. So because they're in charge of finding themselves guilty or not, it then becomes a conspiracy theory. That's all it is. That's what conspiracy theories is. It's when the government are in control of their own investigation, to uncover the truth about themselves, and they're in charge of the outcome of that investigation. So because they're in charge of the outcome, they're in control of evidence being found and what the result is. So it's a term coined by the CIA for people who accuse the government of things that they're in control of proving. So then it becomes a conspiracy theory. In the other case, it's bang to rights. You know, evidence, you know, is there. People are charged. People go to prison. When it's the government and they're in charge, it then becomes a conspiracy theory. But anyway, back to my point. Would it be right to call you a terrorist if you came into my house with a baseball bat and did the same to me that I've done to your kids and totally just, you know, smashed a baseball bat over their heads? Would you be in the wrong for wanting revenge? Would you be within your rights to come round to my house the very second you got my name and do something to me? And would you want to? Would you want revenge? Iraq war was illegal. Saddam Hussein, even though Saddam Hussein needed removing, there had to be a regime change. Of course they did. But that wasn't the aim of the West, was it? It wasn't to remove him for democracy and peace. It was far from it. But the Iraq war was illegal under the United Nations. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a fact. A well-documented fact. It was illegal. They had no right to invade Iraq under the United Nations law that are there to protect nations against illegal invasions set up after World War II. So things like, you know, Hitler, you know, invading Poland couldn't happen again. That's what the United Nations there is, to protect nations against illegal invasions. And the United Nations that's there to protect countries did not protect Iraq. Whether the rights and wrongs of what Saddam Hussein lied, it was a lie. A well-documented lie. That's not a conspiracy theory. That is a well-documented fact. They had no right to invade Iraq. It was illegal. Right? It was. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's not a delusion. It is a well-documented fact. They had no jurisdiction. They had no law. The law was against them. Yet they still allowed the West to invade Iraq. Yet it didn't get passed by the UN. Do you understand what I'm saying? It didn't get passed, so how could they have, you know, how could they invade Iraq when it was illegal? Yet they still did. Which is no surprise because the United Nations is Western owned. It's an American fucking organisation. It's Western powers. So that war was Iraq, right? And I believe the Iraq war, 250,000 people died during that conflict. Don't quote me on that. That's an estimate. 250,000 people died. 250,000 people died. Civilians, men, women and children. Children. Highlight that word, children. An illegal war that was illegal under the United Nations laws that are there to protect people. 250,000 people, including children. That was 2003. Never mind Afghanistan. Right? Before that, Iraq was illegal, well documented, proven fact. And then we have 7/7 July 2005, the London bombings, and people call it terrorism. Oh look, terrorism. No, I don't agree. I call it justice, because Iraq was illegal, well documented under the United Nations laws. Well documented that it was an illegal war. There were no weapons of mass destruction. Well documented that it was lies and propaganda. So if something happens after the fact, we, the West, not we, the West invade countries illegally for political gain, because most people in Western, you know, countries might be naive, might not give two shits, but other people are so fucking stupid. People might not give a, you know, care not to look into these things, not be bothered to educate themselves. Right, but other people are so fucking stupid. And just like if I came round to your house and smashed your children to bits with a baseball bat, right, you'd want revenge. Well, so do they. So do people from them countries that have had the countries destroyed, towns destroyed, children killed, the families completely wiped out. Do you understand what I'm saying? Am I making sense? So just like you'd want revenge, I'm sure people from that country, people affected by the wars in the Middle East, well, they want revenge. 7/7/2005 was after Iraq, after an illegal invasion by the West. So if anything happens after that, why are people scratching their heads and why are they calling it fucking terrorism? Because it makes no sense. If the invasion in Iraq did not happen, and then something happens, then fair enough. That would make sense, unprovoked. But when countries are invading other countries illegally and wiping out towns and cities and children are being blown to bits, and I'm being graphic here for a purpose, to try and get it in your fucking head to make you think. With my story as well about your children, I'm trying to provoke you into thinking here. I'm trying to, get you angry. Because if you feel angry, or you're quite, thinking, that's a bit fucking brutal, Aaron, how do you think they feel? For them, it's a reality. It's not a story. Do you understand what I'm saying? Not terrorism after the fact, when it's an illegal war. In my eyes, it's justice. Because if you came round to my house with a baseball bat and I had children and you smashed my children to bits, I would come round to your house the very second and I would just, completely smash you to bits. I wouldn't be a terrorist, would I? No. I'm the one that's had my children killed. I'd be well in me rights. That'd be justice. That wouldn't be terrorism. It'd be justice. Just like if any acts, of anything happening in Western countries after these things are happening within the Middle East, that's not terrorism. That's justice in my eyes. And it is. That's the repercussions of the West's action. But you know what? To balance it out as well, that's not a judgment on the West. My personal beliefs are you're in a controlled world. These things are happening for a reason. And I say that as well because of the majority of people way of thinking. It goes, it beggars belief, it really does. That majority of people can't see it for what it is. The majority of people don't care. The majority of people don't take the time to find out these things. Or even want to take the time to find out these things. They don't give a shit. If not, the world's a real horrible place. A majority of people are really horrible people that don't give a shit about no one but themselves. And they can't do, because majority of people don't know, do they? They just call it terrorism. And then, make stupid fucking remarks and call people shoe bombers. Anyway, right, just a few words there. And I will graphic for a purpose. To make you think, to provoke you. But if I came round to your house and smashed your children over the head with a baseball bat and completely splattered the brains all over the fucking floor, I'm sure you'd want to do the same to me, and you wouldn't be a terrorist for doing that. That'd be justice in my eyes, and in your eyes even more so. Just like if anything happens in the West after the wars in the Middle East, when they are fucking stupid, people are not naive, people know what it's about. The West might be naive because they don't give a shit. But other people are wise to the wars in the Middle East, political agenda, the dollar, central banks and the rest. They're not fucking idiots. So if I came to your house and smashed your children over there with a baseball bat, you'd want to do the same to me. You wouldn't be a terrorist, that'd be justice. Just like if anything happens in a Western country, if something happens like a bombing or an attack, that's not terrorism. Because you're speaking about after the fact, and the Iraq war was an illegal war. And what's happened to Tony Blair? Has he been arrested? I mean, a Mickey Mouse kill quote inquiry bordered by MPs what probably voted for the Iraq war. And if they didn't vote for the Iraq war, there's no way you're putting a fucking Prime Minister in prison when it's, when they own the United Nations. Because if they didn't own the United Nations, then they wouldn't have gone, would they? Those laws would have been enforced. The only reason why they invaded Iraq because they can do what they fucking want. Do you understand what I'm saying? Anyway, I don't need to go on, but don't call any acts of violence, right? By Muslims or or anyone in this country terrorism. Because I can tell you now, based on logic, common sense, right? All you need is an ounce of fucking giving a fuck to know these things, and you can see for what it is. But don't call it terrorism. Call it justice. Call it something that you'd do. If the same happened to you. To call it something how you'd feel. You'd feel angry. You'd want fucking revenge. But it's not fucking terrorism.